God bless you. This is Pastor Sharon, and welcome to Nourishment for Your Soul. Today, we're going to talk about God's purpose. And this is coming from St. John chapter 11, and I'm going to use verse 16 and then verse 21 through verse 25. Let me just give you a backdrop of the story for the sake of time. This is about Lazarus. Lazarus is the one that Jesus raised from the dead. And this is actually what happened. This is the conversation that happened after Lazarus had died. Now, I'm going to start with his interaction with his sisters. And then we're going to talk about what Jesus said even before that happened. So chapter 11, verse 21 says, Martha said to Jesus, so now he's there. Lazarus has died and he's having a conversation with Martha. She says, Lord, if you would have been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, he shall live, or he will live. This is a very interesting point. Martha is saying to Jesus, if you would have been here before my brother died, he wouldn't have died. And a lot of us feel that way. They say, Lord, if you would have intervened, if you would have done something, if you would have said something, if you would have shown us, if you would have stopped this, Jesus, if you would have done anything, this tragic thing, this horrible thing, this sad thing, this bothersome thing would not have happened, right? So Jesus says, and this is going to verse 16. So Jesus gets the word that Lazarus is sick and he's going to die. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go up a little bit. And this is coming from verse 11 at chapter 11. And it says, after saying these things, so Jesus, you know what? Let me go up a little bit more. This is verse 5. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So this is three of them. It's two sisters and a brother. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. So Jesus delayed going, right? Then after this, he said to the disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you're going there again? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, but because he sees the light of this world. So Jesus is telling the disciples, he is the light of the world, and he's coming to help people. Verse 10, but if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. So he's saying that these people, these rabbis that are against him, they're going to stumble. Verse 11, and after saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I will go to awaken him. So what Jesus is trying to tell the disciples is that Lazarus is dead. And then it gets to the point where he has to flat out say it. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. So they're saying if he's just asleep, Lord, he'll wake up. Now, Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest and sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake, listen to this. Now, this is the important part. He says, for your sake, I am glad that I was not there so that you may believe. And then he goes, but let us go to him. And I'm going to stop right there. A lot of times when we're going through situations and they're horrible, a lot of them are horrible, and you're like, how in the world am I ever going to get through this? This is gut wrenching. And we always think and we always say, well, where is God in this? Where is God in this? Where is God in this? How many of us have said that? That's a real thing. And that's what Martha was saying. She said, where, Jesus, if you would have been here, this wouldn't even went down this way. Where are you? Where were you? And here we read that Jesus delayed his time in going because he wanted Lazarus to die. Now we can take that and put that in a couple of different situations. But the main thing is, a lot of times when your prayers are delayed, when you don't get the answer that you're looking for right away, it's not because Jesus is not there. It's not because God does not hear you. It's not because he doesn't love you. It's because he's getting the glory out of the situation. You know, if you've never been through anything, you don't have a testimony. And I know people say, oh, I don't have to have a testimony like this. But you know that you don't. And sometimes God uses you as an example. He uses you as an example. And let me just tell you why he uses you as an example. Let's look at the book of Job. Job was an example to Satan, right? The adversary. He was an example. He said to him, he said, have you seen my servant Job? And Satan says to him, no, I've seen him. I can't even get to him. I can't touch him. You got to have your protection around him. And God lowered that protection to prove to Satan that Job was not going to betray him like he did. A lot of times God is showing the enemy that you're not going to fold, you're not going to bend, you're not going to fumble or crumble like Satan did. And I know you're like, wow, what? Yes, every time in the bad situations and we stand and say, God is for us, we're not going to cower, we're not going to bend, we're not going to be moved, we're going to go through this thing. God is showing the enemy, look, this is my child. I have something in this person that you can't take away from them. So here we are back at Martha, and she's talking to Jesus, and she's saying, if you would have been here, this wouldn't happen. And Jesus is saying, in a couple of verses ahead, he's saying, I'm going to delay going so he can die, so you can believe. He's talking to the disciples. Now, who's an example? Lazarus is an example. He's being an example to them. God is using him for an illustration. Martha and Mary crying their eyes out. They're so sad. Lazarus was sick and then he died. And he's saying to the disciples, let's read it again. I am glad that I was not there so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Sometimes you are an example so somebody else can believe. So don't go through your situation all upset like God abandoned me. He left me. Man, nah. And then turn away. Go through whatever you're going through knowing that God is going to bring you out because you are an example. Job is an example. He's so much of an example. Job is in the Bible. And what did God do? He restored him double what he lost because he was an example. See, God pays you for your work, man. He does. He pays you for your work. So here we go and we continue on. They get there. They get there. Lazarus is in the tomb. I'm going to have to read this whole part. And now this is still chapter 11. This is verse 38. Now he's talked to them already, right? He's talked to, I'm going to jump ahead. He's talked to Martha. He's talked to Mary. Jesus deeply moved again. Came to the tomb. It was a cave and a stone laid against it. So this man is decomposed, okay? Let's get to the real. He's decomposed. He smells, okay? He's rotten. He's rotten, okay? Flesh is falling off his body. He's cold. He's changed color. All of the inside, his body fluids and everything have been drained out. Let's just be graphic about it. And here he's in the tomb. He's put away. They got him all wrapped up in his bandages. They got him in the tomb. They got the stone over the tomb. It's like a mausoleum. And Jesus said, this is verse 38. Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he is dead 4 days. He's 4 days dead. Okay, 4 days. And she's saying to him, listen, what you doing? If you would have been here, this would have never happened. If you'd have been here, I never had to go through this trouble. If you would have been here, I never lost my job. If you'd have been here, I never got divorced. If you'd have been here, my son, father, husband, brother, sister, cousin, mother wouldn't have died. And Jesus is like, hey, what is that to me? I am the resurrection. He rolls away. They roll away the stone. Now they listen to him. They roll away the stone. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? See, even situations we put ourselves in, God can use them as an example. And he's telling her, didn't I tell you, if you believe me, you're going to see the glory of God? 41. So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, listen, this is Jesus praying to the Father. He said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around. Another illustration, another example. That they may believe that you sent me. This man is dead 4 days. No one has ever come back from 4 days. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. So he's calling Lazarus to come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. There's going to come a time after you come through and after you see the glory of God, that God is going to loose you and let you go. Go do what? Go be a testimony. Go tell somebody else about the goodness of the Lord. Go tell your story. I want to read this one more part. And this is the important part. And I want to, this part I think is probably more important than anything else. This is verse 45. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, believed in him. So now Lazarus, the example, was bringing people to Jesus, bringing people to God, right? There's the reconciliation, right? But check this out. There's a group of people who don't believe, and they happen to be the leaders of the church, the synagogue. But some of them who went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, what are we to do? For this man performs many signs, if we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. Isn't that interesting? They didn't have enough faith to know and understand that God can do anything. So they said, instead of me praying for the sick, I will teach you how to depend on me. That way, if you get sick, I can look like I'm the savior. Kind of sounds familiar. Might have heard that somewhere. Might have seen that in action somewhere. See, if you keep coming to my church, right, and I don't teach you anything, you have to depend on me. That sounds familiar. If I keep telling you you're not ready to go minister, you're not ready to go preach, you're not ready to go teach, then you'll sit here and you continue to listen to me. And then you'll know, and then sooner or later you'll forget who you are, and then you'll think that I'm the great one because I got to go and I got to talk to my leader about everything I do in my life. Sounds familiar. These people are willing to do all of this stuff. instead of acknowledging God. They're willing to kill Jesus so the Romans don't take away their position. Isn't that something? That's very interesting. They're going to kill Jesus, the true and living God, so they don't lose their position as high priests, because the Romans would come and take it away from them. That sounds just like what's going on today. So what I'm saying to you is, and what I say all the time, have a relationship with God, with Jesus Christ. Okay? When you're going through your situation and you come out, because see, everybody's not going to be happy that you came out. Don't you get twisted. Everyone will not be happy that you have come out of your situation. Everybody, as we see here, was not happy that Lazarus was raised from the dead and came out of the tomb. Some people were annoyed at that because they felt that it would take away their position. So sometimes, not all the time, sometimes when God brings you out of your situation, you're going to run across people who wanted you to stay in your situation because it takes away from them. So you know what you do? You keep on living. You keep on striving. You keep on doing, and you go and you do more. Lazarus, he continued to live. Jesus went to another city and continued to do his thing. We have to understand that everything that happens to us is not for our demise. Sometimes it's because we need to be an example of how to go through some tough times. Anybody can go through anything good. Are you kidding me? Can't you go through something good and not have a problem? I know I could. But see, it takes the toughness to go through something horrible, to prove to the enemy and to prove to people around you that no matter what you go through, you're not going to leave God. What did Job say? He said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. What are you saying? Are you going to say the same thing? Though he slay me, though this situation is messed up, though God allowed it, am I going to stay with him? Am I going to stay with God, or I'm going to go to Buddha, or I'm going to go to Miss Teresa, the psychic reader, or am I going to go to the Elks or the Mason Lodge and let them help me get a job? Am I going to trust and believe in the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, or am I going to go and ask somebody else for help? That's a question you have to ask yourself. But I'm here to tell you that God is for you. If God is for you, he is more than the world against you. God is the one who can give you unmeasurable favor that can raise you up higher than any Mason Lodge can raise you up higher than any Elks Lodge can raise you up higher than any networking program can. God is amazing if you let him be amazing for you. See, Martha and Mary, they didn't understand. They knew he was going to rise, but they couldn't understand the power of God that he would rise that day. Understand that God will rise you out of your situation today if you allow it, because he is all powerful and almighty. God bless you, and thank you for watching Nourishment for Your Soul.